The inheritance that changed everything. My grandmother left me everything in her will, but my family only found out after the funeral. Now they're demanding I share, but they don't know what they put me through. When I was 8 years old, my parents dropped me off at my grandmother's house for what they said would be a few weeks while they sorted out some problems. Those few weeks turned into 10 years. My grandmother, Elena, became my world, my safe harbor, my everything. She taught me to cook her secret recipes, helped me with homework every night, and held me when I cried about missing my parents. My parents would visit sporadically, maybe once every few months, always with promises that they'd take me home soon. But soon never came. When I turned 13, I stopped asking when I could go home. Elena's house had become home. She was more than a grandmother to me, she was my mother, my father, my anchor. During those years, my parents were building their lives. They moved to a bigger house, had another child, my half-sister Mia, and seemed to forget I existed except for those guilt-driven visits that became less and less frequent. Meanwhile, my cousins, my Aunt Sarah's kids, would visit Elena every Christmas and summer, bringing chaos and demands. They'd rifle through her jewelry box, break her china, and leave messes everywhere. Elena would smile and clean up after them, but I could see the exhaustion in her eyes. Their family, she'd tell me when I'd complain about their behavior. Family forgives. But I was family too, and I was the one who stayed. I was the one who helped her grocery shop when her arthritis flared up. I was the one who drove her to doctor's appointments when I got my license. I was the one who held her hand during chemo treatments when she was diagnosed with cancer at 78. The cancer battle lasted 2 years. 2 years of hospital visits, medication schedules, and watching the strongest woman I knew slowly fade away. My parents visited exactly 3 times during those 2 years. My Aunt Sarah called occasionally but never visited. My cousin sent a card once. But I was there. Every single day. I took online college courses so I could be her caregiver. I learned to manage her medications, help her bathe, and cook the soft foods she could still swallow. During her final weeks, she could barely speak, but she'd squeeze my hand and whisper, "Thank you, Mija." Elena passed away on a quiet Tuesday morning in March. I was holding her hand. She took her last breath looking at me, and I knew I'd lost the only real parent I'd ever had. The funeral was small but packed. Suddenly, family members I hadn't seen in years appeared, crying loudly and sharing memories of "Dear Elena." My parents sobbed as if they'd lost their own mother. My Aunt Sarah gave a eulogy about Elena's unconditional love for family. I sat in the front row, numb with grief, watching these people perform their sorrow while I felt like my world had ended. After the service, everyone gathered at Elena's house, my house, for the traditional meal. I watched my cousins eyeing Elena's antique furniture and jewelry, my Aunt Sarah commenting on how valuable the house had become, and my parents whispering about arrangements. 3 days later, Elena's lawyer, Mr. Rodriguez, called a family meeting to read the will. Everyone gathered in his office, my parents, Aunt Sarah, my 3 cousins, and me. Mr. Rodriguez opened the document and began reading. The room was silent except for the sound of pages turning. To my beloved granddaughter, Isabella, who chose to stay when others chose to leave, who cared for me when others were too busy, who showed me what true love looks like, I leave everything. My house, my savings, my investments, my jewelry, my car, and all my worldly possessions. She earned every bit of it. The silence that followed was deafening. Then chaos erupted. "That's impossible!" Aunt Sarah shouted. She was senile at the end. "This has to be a mistake," my mother said, her face pale. Elena would never leave everything to one person. My cousins immediately started talking over each other. "What about the jewelry she promised me? She said I could have the dining room set. This isn't fair." My father stood up, his face red with anger. Isabella probably manipulated her. She was living there, isolating Elena from the rest of the family. I sat there in shock, not at the inheritance, but at their reactions. Mr. Rodriguez cleared his throat. Mrs. Elena Vasquez was of sound mind when she made this will. I have documentation from her doctor confirming her mental capacity. She was very specific about her wishes and her reasons. He handed me a sealed envelope. "She asked me to give you this after the reading." I opened it with shaking hands. Inside was a letter in Elena's careful handwriting. My dearest Isabella, if you're reading this, I'm gone, and I hope you're not feeling too overwhelmed by what I've left you. You might wonder why I didn't divide things equally among the family. The answer is simple: you were my family when no one else was. You sacrificed your teenage years and young adulthood to take care of me. You put your life on hold to ensure I wasn't alone. While others visited when convenient, you lived with love. While others made promises, you kept yours. This house, these things, they're not just possessions, they're thank you for being my daughter when your parents forgot how to be parents, for being my grandchild when my other grandchildren were too busy growing up to remember me. Don't let anyone make you feel guilty for accepting what you've earned through love and sacrifice. You owe them nothing. Live your life, Mija. Be happy. You deserve everything good this world has to offer. Con amor, Abuela Elena. I folded the letter carefully, tears streaming down my face. When I looked up, my family was staring at me with a mixture of anger and expectation. Well? Aunt Sarah demanded. What did she say? She said she loves me, I answered quietly. Over the next few weeks, the pressure campaign began. My parents called daily, sometimes crying, sometimes angry, always with the same message: family shares. Elena would want us to be fair. You can't possibly need all that money. They were right about one thing: I didn't need all that money. Elena had been secretly investing for decades. The house was worth $800,000, and her investment portfolio was worth another $1.2 million. She'd lived modestly while building wealth for her family, for me. My cousins started showing up at the house unannounced, acting like they still had a right to be there. They'd walk through rooms, pointing at things they wanted, making comments about how they remembered when Elena promised this to me. I changed the locks. Aunt Sarah hired a lawyer to contest the will. When that failed, Elena's mental capacity was thoroughly documented. She started a whisper campaign in the neighborhood about how I'd stolen from the family, how I'd isolated Elena and manipulated her into changing her will. The truth was simpler and more painful than they wanted to admit: Elena had never changed her will. She'd made it 5 years earlier, while she was still healthy, after watching how her family treated her during a particularly difficult Christmas. She'd told me about it then. I'm not stupid, Mija, she'd said as we cleaned up wrapping paper and broken ornaments left behind by my cousins. I see who shows up when I need help and who shows up when they need something. 6 months after Elena's death, I was still fighting off family members who felt entitled to her legacy. That's when I made a decision that shocked everyone. I called a family meeting at the house. They all came, probably expecting me to announce some kind of division of assets. Instead, I had prepared something else entirely. I've been thinking a lot about what Elena would want, I began, standing in her living room surrounded by people who had treated her like an ATM, and I think she'd want you all to understand something. I pulled out a folder I'd prepared. These are Elena's medical records from the last 2 years of her life. Every appointment, every treatment, every emergency room visit. Would you like to know who signed as her emergency contact? Who made her medical decisions? Who stayed with her during every single hospital stay? I opened another folder. These are her grocery receipts, pharmacy receipts, and household expenses from the last 5 years I lived with her. Would you like to see who paid for her medications when Medicare didn't cover them? Who bought her groceries? Who paid for the home modifications when she needed grab bars and ramps? My mother was crying now. Isabella, we didn't know. You didn't know because you didn't ask, I interrupted. You knew she was sick. You knew she was alone most of the time. You made choices. I opened a third folder. These are Elena's bank records. Look at the dates and amounts. Every time one of you called asking for money, for car repairs, rent, medical bills, your kids' school expenses, she said yes. Do you know how much she gave to this family over the years? $180,000. Nearly everything she had saved, she gave away to help all of you. The room was silent now. She started rebuilding her savings when I moved in permanently and got a job to help with expenses. She was able to invest again because she wasn't constantly bailing out family members who saw her as a bank. The money you're all demanding. You already got it. Over the years, in loans that were never repaid, in gifts that were never acknowledged, in help that was never reciprocated. Aunt Sarah found her voice. That was her choice. She wanted to help. You're right, I agreed. It was her choice. Just like leaving everything to me was her choice. Just like staying to take care of her was my choice. Just like ignoring her for years was your choice. I stood up. I'm not dividing Elena's estate. But I am going to honor her memory in the way she would have wanted. The next week, I announced the Elena Vasquez Foundation for Elderly Care. I donated $500,000 to establish a fund that would help families care for aging relatives, provide respite care for caregivers, and offer support services for seniors who were isolated or alone. The announcement made the local newspaper. The headline read, "Local Woman Honors Grandmother with Charitable Foundation." The article detailed Elena's life, her dedication to family, and her final wish to help other elderly people in our community. My family's reaction was swift and ugly. Aunt Sarah called me selfish for throwing away money that should have gone to family. My parents accused me of making them look bad publicly. My cousins complained that I was using Elena's money for strangers instead of blood relatives. But something unexpected happened. The article generated dozens of responses from people in our community who remembered Elena, from the grocery store where she shopped for 40 years, from the church where she volunteered, from neighbors who remembered her kindness. They shared stories about her generosity, her wisdom, and her grace. Mrs. Chin from down the street wrote, "Elena helped me when my husband died. She brought me meals for weeks and never asked for anything in return." The pharmacist where she filled her prescriptions wrote, "Elena always asked about my family and remembered my children's names. She was a light in this world." Reading these tributes, I realized something important. Elena had been building a different kind of family all along, a community of people who appreciated her, valued her, and saw her as more than just a source of financial support. A year later, the foundation had helped over 50 families. We provided home care services, medical equipment, and support groups. We'd created a visiting program that connected isolated seniors with volunteers. We'd established a scholarship for people studying geriatric care. At the foundation's first annual fundraiser, I spoke about Elena's vision. She believed that family isn't defined by blood, but by love, respect, and showing up when it matters. She showed me that legacy isn't about what you leave behind, but about how you treat people while you're here. My biological family didn't attend the event. They'd essentially cut me off after realizing I wouldn't be changing my mind about the inheritance. My parents moved away, claiming they couldn't face the embarrassment of having their parenting failures aired in public. Aunt Sarah still lives in town but crosses the street when she sees me. I can't say I miss them. The grief I felt was for the family I'd always hoped we could be, not for the reality of what we actually were. Today, I live in Elena's house, my house now. I've kept her garden, her furniture, her recipes. I've also filled it with new memories. I got married last year to David, a social worker I met through the foundation. He understands my story, respects my choices, and loves the woman Elena helped me become. We're expecting our first child in the spring. I know exactly what I'll name her if she's a girl. Sometimes people ask if I regret my decision, if I feel guilty about the money, if I think I should have shared the inheritance. My answer is always the same: Elena gave me everything long before she died. She gave me a home when I was abandoned, love when I was forgotten, and an example of what true family looks like. The inheritance wasn't a gift, it was a recognition of what I'd already given. And I've used it exactly as she would have wanted, to help others, to honor her memory, and to build the kind of family she taught me to value. Blood doesn't make you family. Love, loyalty, and showing up, that's what makes you family. Elena taught me that, and I'll spend the rest of my life proving she was right.